Thank you again for doing this. I appreciate it. I'm putting on YouTube for the family.
Hold on. Okay, we're tagging out. Mike wants to take over now, so.
Mike, we're going to go inside in a minute. I'm not going to bore you with all this.
Recording this?
Yes.
We're tagging my hands off of
I'm just explaining why
you
the
have hands?
interviewer voice is changing.
Well, no, look, I'm just putting this on YouTube for archival purposes, okay? When we were kids, we used to have audio tapes of our grandparents, and we listened to them as kids. And at some point, you have to have some, StoryCorps kind of understanding of who was before you, what was going on, what they wanted to talk about,
Look at him, not the camera.
All right.
Well, I mean, I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, and we can certainly stop it anytime you want. I have no purpose or whatever. I don't have an agenda, or I'm not trying to... Is there anything you wanted to tell, like your grandkids, who right now are 6 and 4? Jack is 4 years old, And he doesn't know his granddad.
Well,
if he's watching this in 10 years or 50 years, 20 years.
Or any of the grandkids.
Yeah.
Well, my grandparents died when I was young, so I didn't really know my grandparents real well. Plus the fact they were living in the middle of the country. And
would you want to have the opportunity to get to know them?
Yeah, I think
maybe sit down, listen to them talk about their life and this and that.
I think so. Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to provide to my kids and to my nieces and nephews.
Okay.
So we're in July 4th here, and Lisa's here, and Brian, and Carolina Harrison, and Jillian. Chris is here with Aaron and their baby Kate. Elaine is here. But, Charles and Sue, Jamie and Heather, and Tyler and Peyton and Matthew, and Bill and Kelly, and Connor and Sarah, and Josh are not here, and they can't sit and watch this, and the kids are all watching a movie and going nuts. And so I want to give them the opportunity to kind of talk to you a little bit. That's what I'm saying. They can hear from you, this and that. So.
Okay. All right. That's what Lisa was trying to do, too.
And that's exactly what I'm trying to do as well. That's it. So when Maddie was born, Maddie and Jack, and they don't know this, and they may not see this video for a long time, but Amy and I set up an email account for them. And we've been writing them letters since they were little. Letters about funny things that they did, or funny things that happened, or, I wrote them a letter from the South Carolina bar, from the State House of South Carolina when I was sworn in as an attorney. Just to kind of tell them what I was doing that day, and, something they weren't really aware of. Just kind of writing them a note and saying, hey, when you're older, we'll talk about this sort of thing. And so that's the sort of thing I'm trying to do for them now as well, from family members. And Chris just walked in, and I don't know if he's got anything to add, and we're just talking about things you would want your kids to know. Would you want Kate to know?
About Papa Lou?
About Papa Lou. Back in the day.
I've got a question for you. You may have already answered this, but what made you want to have a larger family?
we tread on the same sort of water. I mean, we haven't really heard an answer. I mean,
It really, your mother was probably the driver behind that. I came from a family of 2, so I wasn't accustomed to a large family. She came from a family of 5. So it was important to her to have a relatively large family.
So that means that you are amenable to having a large family.
Yeah, I was amenable, yes.
Tell us about the child rearing aspects. How did you guys divide responsibilities in your household? Like, who did what?
Well, I don't know that we ever did sit down and talk and say, you do this and I'll do that. I'm not sure that was the case. I think it just turned out that circumstances would arise and it was appropriate for her, Carol, or me to deal with the child rearing at that particular point.
So can you be more specific? Like, was there any sort of kind of like the equivalent of household chores or things that had to be done on a day-to-day basis that maybe you like to do or you prefer to do it, versus she didn't like to do it as much and maybe she liked to do something else?
So you like to cook. You cooked.
Yeah, I like to cook.
Right.
I like to cook, and I enjoy doing yard work. Work around the yard. I tried to keep the yard looking decent. And she wasn't that interested in doing that, or she wasn't that interested in terms of the cooking. I think that was greatly due to the fact that her mother really wasn't a real gung-ho person for cooking. She'd cook, but she didn't really make an effort to try to fancy things up in what they were having to eat.
So I have Jack and Maddie are now asking me, when they don't hear me say something, they'll say, what? They'll say, I'll talk, and they'll say, what? They won't understand. I said, you guys can't talk like that. You have to say, pardon me, or beg your pardon, please. And Helen McDonald used to say that phrase all the time, when I remember. Were there things you remember, the idiosyncrasies of either Mom's parents or your parents that you just remember that were like, wow, so-and-so liked, I don't know, fancy car or white dresses or long hair? Or...
Well, I don't remember what you're saying regarding...
Remember Helen would say, beg your pardon, please?
I didn't know that.
Beg your pardon, please?
I don't remember that.
Beg your pardon?
The reason why I say that is because, for the most part, we were not a real close family.
Well, or your parents. Or
Well,
grandparents.
in the first place, my dad died before I was even married. My mother died only a year or two after I was married, so my parents were not there to provide input.
Were you close to your parents?
I felt I was. Yeah,
Did you play baseball with your dad, throw catch, or do you guys...
Yeah, we played baseball. Or football.
He'd throw the football with you?
Yeah.
You and Mike? Because that's what Mike wanted to play. Because you played football and baseball, right?
I played football and baseball, and Mike played football.
What position did you play in baseball?
Well...
Yeah, first base.
Being that you're left-handed.
Yeah, I played first. I played before I went into high school. So what I was playing in high school was a little different than what I was playing, for the most part, when I was before high school. There was Little League, and then there was, I think it was called Junior League. And then by the time you finished with Junior League, you're about ready to go into high school. And so if you continued, you'd play in usually high school baseball at that time.
And you didn't play high school baseball?
I did play high school baseball.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
What positions did you play?
Outfield. I think it was center field, principally.
Were you a good hitter?
I was, but I started to become not a very good hitter my senior year, and then I ended up dropping out of baseball.
What happened?
I don't know. I just stopped
hitting
the ball. I could still play a good defensive player in the outfield, but not much of a hitter for offense.
Did you have a part-time job when you were in high school?
I know I did in college. I think I did. I'm pretty sure this was in high school. I worked at an ice cream shop.
You were a soda jerk, like they say?
Yeah, kind of like that, except
that's what they call it, right?
Except I was more involved with making. They did chocolate-covered bananas.
Like on the beach, sort of thing?
And they make up a lot of chocolate-covered bananas, and I was one of the people who made up you make them, you take the bananas, peel them, and then you dip them in chocolate, and then you freeze them. So
put them on a stick or something.
Job.
Put them on a stick.
Is that why you like banana ice cream?
Put them on a stick. No.
I'm joking.
So yeah, I'm just, it's hard for me to remember if I did that in high school, but I'm pretty sure I did that as a senior in high school.
So, when it came to you going to high school, were you able to walk there? Did you drive a car? Did you ride the bus? Did you have a friend take you?
The high school,
Drake High School.
Drake High School, was in San Anselmo. And initially, my parents were living in San Anselmo. So I went to Drake High School. Then they decided to build another house in Fairfax, which is right next to San Anselmo, but it's just a few miles away from where we were living before. And so when they were building this house in Fairfax, they rented a house that was real close to the high school. So Drake High School. So I didn't change schools, you know, during that was the freshman year in high school. Then when they moved into the house in Fairfax, it was still in the Drake High School limits, but it was not a school close enough that you could walk to, so I had to get some kind of transportation to get out to the school. Maybe it was 3, maybe 5 miles. I don't really remember exactly how far, but it was a few miles. It probably seemed like a long ways then, and now it's probably not that far, but it's still probably not walking distance. So a guy that I knew who was maybe a year or 2 ahead of me in school drove his car to school, and he offered to give me a ride, so he'd give me a ride.
You went back to your 25th reunion. No, 50th reunion.
50th, yeah.
Recently, right?
Yeah. That was
What
a
was
couple
that
of years
like?
ago. That was interesting to see these guys who are all a lot older. Of course, I was too. You know,
Did you recognize some friends, or
Huh?
was it a big turnout? Did you recognize some friends?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a big turnout, and several of the friends that I had from high school were there.
What were they doing?
Uh,
A lot of them stayed in California?
yeah, a lot of them stayed. Of course, remember, most of these people who went to the reunion were still living in California, and some of them were still living relatively close to where Drake High School is. I mean, in the sense that it's in San Anselmo,
They're still there.
and some of them were maybe not in San Anselmo. Like Marin County is just north of San Francisco, right on the other side of the Golden Gate. You go across the ocean on the Golden Gate and you're in Marin County, and then you go a little ways up, 5 or 10 or so, or maybe 15 miles, and you're in Santa Fe, and to a mile or 2 from that is San Anselmo. So how did I get into that?
Your friends from high school, the 50th reunion, had moved within Marin County or close by.
Yeah.
So there was a good turnout of people who were from around there.
So Santa Fe
Yep.
is, I guess you'd say, probably the capital of
Marin
it's not
County.
capital of Marin County.
Yeah.
County seat, maybe?
County seat, and there's about 50,000 people. I mean, it doesn't seem much to you, you know, who live in a million-person town, but at that time, when I went to school, Santa Fe was probably 15 or 20,000 people. So now it's over doubled in size. Of course, it was a long time ago. But there's another town north of Santa Fe called Novato. And Novato is as big as Santa Fe. Novato was a much smaller place than Santa Fe was. So that area has really grown a lot.
So, this is a little bit more about your childhood, this question is, in that respect. Did you ever get to travel within your own state? You know, like, did you ever get to go to any other parts of the state, or did you guys just kind of keep it, you know, close?
We mostly kept it close. My dad was a salesman, so he would drive to, he was a lumber salesman.
Was he a good salesman?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was a good salesman.
Was he the Bill of the family?
Yeah.
Easy to make friends. You know,
Yeah.
personable.
Charismatic.
Yeah. Yeah, he, after World War II, my mother and him, my father, were in the Wichita area, Kansas. And just before, well, I guess it was after the war started, they moved out to California. And my dad entered or was in the Air Force. They used to call it the Army Air Corps.
What did he do in the Air Corps?
He was
Quartermaster, procurement officer?
That's right. That's what he was. He was a quartermaster. That's what he was. He was a quartermaster. So he, I guess it kind of tied in a little bit with his job later on when he got out of the service. And I don't know exactly what he was doing right out of the service, but eventually he ended up working in San Francisco. Again, remember Marin County which is incidentally the Air Force base that he was stationed in was just north of San Rafael.
So what was your mom like? You never talk about your mom very much.
No.
We never hear much about her. Was she personable, outgoing? Did she make a lot of friends?
Yeah, I think that's a good
Did she
description.
work? Did she,
No.
Did she go to college? Was in the Air Force in service?
No, she wasn't in the Air Force. She wasn't in the service. At that time, for the most part, women didn't go into the military.
What did she do? What was she like?
She was a homemaker, and she. I think she enjoyed being at home, but I say that hesitantly because she had a college degree.
In what? I didn't know
In
that.
music. She was a good piano player.
Oh, really? Okay.
And also a violinist.
Where did she go to school?
She went to Wichita, where my dad went to.
And where she grew up?
Yeah, where she grew up. That's
So
right.
her parents were from Kansas.
Well, no, not her parents, but her aunt.
Did she live with her aunt when she was young?
No. Well, yes, I guess she did, yes.
Where were her parents?
Her parents passed away when she was very young. I don't know exactly the year, but it was after she was born, and she was born in 1915, so it was sometime soon after 1915.
Like near in the Depression sort of thing. Like, are we talking about 20s or 30s?
Well, she was born in 1915.
And they died soon thereafter?
Soon thereafter. And then she moved to Wichita, where her Aunt Peary was living.
Do you know how they died?
No, I don't, but my grandfather, who I never knew, was working for the federal government.
Your grandfather, your mother's father.
My mother's father.
Okay.
Was working for the federal government associated with the Panama Canal. And by that time, I think the canal had been finished construction. So I think he would be associated with the management of the canal.
Uh-huh. And he died in Panama.
And he died in Panama, and then his wife also died in Panama.
Was she American or was she Panamanian?
She was Irish. She was from Ireland.
But was she an American citizen?
Well, I would assume she was. She ended up marrying an American citizen, so I don't know if that...
You don't know much about them, though? You don't know their names or... It's okay. It's a long time ago.
Well, I know that... no, I don't. I never knew him.
All right. So you're talking about your mom, and she was homemaker, and she played... You listened to her play music?
Yeah.
Did she...
Yeah, she played the piano. She played the violin. But she never professionally performed either of those two things, instruments.
Dad, I'm sorry, I want to interject because we only have like a minute left to complete this interview.
Okay.
Can you tell me maybe an early memory from what it was like with your mom or your dad or both? A happy memory, something a good end note.
Well, I have a lot of sad memories with my mother because my mother, I think I mentioned, was essentially an alcoholic. And I knew that she was an alcoholic early on in my years. I might have been 6 or 7 or 8, and I knew this. And she got progressively worse. So,
Despite that, can you think of anything positive?
Well, we would occasionally, for vacations, we would go in the summertime to Kansas, Wichita, and visit my aunt, and that was always enjoyable times when we did that. That was back in the years when we didn't have interstate highways, so driving a long distance at that time was nowhere near the same as it is today.
What did you do that was fun in Wichita?
Just being around my aunt was really enjoyable to be around. She was a teacher, elementary school teacher, and she was fun.
Okay, well, any final parting words for this round session of the interview?